So, a beautiful and insightful founding member of my signature dance music production course, Producing with Purpose, shared this article the other day, which I found fascinating. It's a summary of comments made by Kieran Hebden, aka Joshua Falcon, aka Fortet, I guess, on the Tape Notes podcast a few months ago with some truly wild notions inside, such as the fact that he produces on his laptop speakers in bed, which is disgusting to me because producing international smash hit dance tunes utterly ruins the sanctity of my most cherished activity, bed rotting. Anyway, the thing that I actually wanted to talk about was this.
I pretty much only use presets on things. Yeah. I don't really mess with... basically, I'll get a sound, I'll get the melody, the notes I want, and then I'll get it up and running, and then I'll just cycle through loads and loads of them one after another until I find one that's quite nice, and I'll just choose a preset, and that'll be it. Yeah. I'm not doing any sound design type of stuff particularly on any of my things.
The interview in the episode also breaks down the 2022 anthem Looking at Your Pager and its extremely fast development. Once Josh got the vocal and drums on the go, he flicked through the preset library in Omnisphere and stuck a big fat wobbly bass in the tune. Job done, simple as, wrap it up, bounce it, get it on the sound system at Coachella or whatever. Now, I've been thinking about sounds and presets and aesthetics and authenticity a lot lately, partly due to the aforementioned amazing, incredible dance music production course, and this whole shebang gives me a perfect opportunity to break down some of the things that I've learned for you right here. And first, fascinating question I have for you is, why does this matter? Who cares? Why are we talking about this man and his preset library like it changes any aspect of our lives whatsoever? I think it speaks to an anxiety that many of us have as artists that goes something like, my music needs to be unique or else nobody will care. Or using presets will make my music less authentic. Or I have to design my own sounds in order to be a legitimate musician, producer person. Whatever way your inner critic wants to phrase it, all of these ideas boil down to a simple belief, which is that the way you make music somehow matters. Now, this makes sense as a position that we might fall into as artists, right? After all, we're the ones who are actually doing the creating, and we have an intimate knowledge of our own creative processes. We spend a lot of time thinking about it, a lot of time doing it, about how the music comes together and how best to express ourselves within it. But think about it, how many people do you know who are talking about this Omnisphere preset bass sound in Looking at Your Pager until this podcast came out? Zero, right? Nobody cared. Arguably they still don't, because nobody can know how a track was made just by listening to it. We can make educated guesses, sure, but only sickos like me would bother to even do that. And hey, if you're interested in that, keep an eye out, because that's something that I'm going to start doing soon. Using presets does not stop your music from being meaningful or effective, as we can obviously see from this example. People love this tune. So it made me wonder if Kaza can just flick through presets until he finds one that sounds quite nice, and he's an internationally renowned recording artist and performer with a decades-long career and genre-spanning appeal. Why the do I bother painstakingly tweaking wavetables and setting up complex modulations in Operator every time I start a tune? Okay, let's calm down and get some fresh perspective from another English guy who's been around making successful music since the 90s. All right, fine. Just roll the tape.
I think for me, it's a battle with yourself, which is about, why am I doing this? What am I hoping to achieve from it? All the technical issues that you have to overcome. But also, there's a battle with the tools as well. And I think one of the worst instruments for me now is the piano, which I've played my whole life. But you sit down at the piano and you're just like, oh man, this is just every sort of, how many pieces of music have been written for the piano, you know? And that issue has transposed itself into electronic music now, which is that when I started making electronic music in the 80s, the technology that we had was developed by people that didn't know what we were going to do with it. And of course, the 808, the 909, the 303, these were designed, the 909 particularly was designed to replace a drummer, you know, to sound like a drummer. It sounds nothing like a drummer, and that's one of the things that's so good about it. And the 303, the amplitude, there's a fault with the 303, the way the amplitude filter works, which means that, which gave birth to acid house and things. And the thing now is that you buy a sampler now and it comes with 5 gigabytes of DVDs of all this stuff. And you open up Logic now and it says, you want to write hip hop, you want to write progressive house, you want to write singer-songwriter, you want to do this, you want to do this. I'm like, dude, just, you know, it's like shopping now. You're like, oh, I'll have a little bit of that and a little bit of that. And it's infantilized us, and it's totally, it's a complete battle, that stuff. So that's why I wrote a manifesto, was like, actually, I want to make the decisions about, for me, the composition starts before you turn the thing on.
This is from an excellent discussion from Ableton's Loop conference that's absolutely full of amazing insights from a whole bunch of different people across all kinds of different issues that come up during the creative process. And I think I share a lot of Matthew's same hang-ups about this. The commodification of the producer, the way that we're sold all these tools and ideas and ways of working that make us more likely to spend money on gear and software and sample packs that will let us finally sound like our favorite artists. You can keenly feel the weight of the market anytime you spend looking at YouTube or Instagram when you feel like you ought to be making tunes instead. In my own creative process, I place a huge emphasis on designing sound, probably for exactly this reason. I'm obstinate for one, but more importantly, I feel a desperate drive to self-individuation under a neoliberal regime that renders identity and creativity as products to be bought and sold. And with the advent of generative AI, that's not to say that what I do is better than how other people make music. What's important is that you structure your creative process in a way that lets you spend time doing the things that you enjoy and find interesting. For me, that does mean sound design, but for you, it could be more about songwriting or arrangement or creating interesting harmonies. I think it's interesting, but not super surprising, that there's a kind of basic assumption that using presets is somehow lesser or less desirable than programming your own sounds. Music producers love to create hierarchies of worth and merit out of the creative process. I wonder why. Some more perspective from that same discussion.
The preset will explain to you what the thing is doing. I think what I'm saying, I don't know if everyone else agrees, but like when you first open it up and you're a new producer, yeah, the preset is going to show you, oh, now I know what a saw sounds like. Now I know what a sine sounds like. So then that should take you backwards to learning the thing so that you can create your own sound. So me being an educator, yeah, my students, when they first come in, that's exactly what they want. They want to press a button, know that they're on the right track to sounding like the producer that they're trying to sound like. Then I try to help them find their voice. And you need to design synth or program the synth that you choose so that you're finding your voice. You know, so it takes them in this backward motion of figuring out synths. I guess I'm just saying that if your music is totally constructed from presets, there's no way that you're going to be different from what everyone else has.
I guess to argue with you, no offense, but in a way, like a piano is a preset. And massive, even if you program it, even if you go completely deep on massive and learn to use it properly and think it through and program your own sound, it's still a preset. They still designed half of your sound for you. I don't know if it's entirely a bad thing. And this idea of kids wanting to fit in, I mean, in dance music, you can't, if you make a dance record, no one's going to play it unless it fits in a set. Which is part of why I don't really make dance records anymore.
A piano is a preset. God damn, he's right. I think this gets at the heart of it, though, for me. Sounds carry meaning. There's a particular history of cultural information attached to, for instance, an 808 kick drum. right? It's deeply ingrained in the history of black music, for one thing, from electro and hip hop through techno and jungle and trap and drill. It also does something very specific on a good sound system. It makes your trousers flap and it punches you in the chest, that physical sensation, the pressure, and that provokes all kinds of different reactions from dancers that are themselves products of different cultures in particular times and places. I'm talking about certain dance styles, or gum fingers in the air, or wheeling up the tune to replay the drop. You could just as easily use some kind of saw wave or triangle wave or whatever as your baseline, but it just wouldn't communicate quite the same thing as an 808 kick drum does, because, like I said, sounds carry meaning and they are situated in the history of culture. So when Matthew Herbert says he can't write anything for the piano, what he's saying is that the cultural history of that instrument is too enormous for him to feel like he can wrestle with it in his music. There's things that the sound of the piano expresses that would overwhelm his own compositions. The meanings that he wants to create would get lost in the piano-ness of it all. And I think I feel similarly. I don't make deep house because what could I say with those sounds and ideas that Larry Heard or Theo Parrish haven't already said in a much more profound way? I'm more comfortable, I'm more interested in trying to find new, weird, squiggly little sounds to express things in my funny little corner of the world. So what does that tell us about Fortet and presets and authenticity? Well, I think that one way that we can understand these things is to place them in their context, in their historical meaning. Is a busy guy with 25 plus years of experience making music for an audience of millions of people.
So I don't really mess with any fundamental stuff like that, usually because I'm just sort of in a rush.
I don't always love his music, but I have a massive amount of respect for how straight shooting he is when it comes to this side of his artistry. So many musicians cloud their process in mystique, acting like there's some magical secret beyond simply listening and experimenting and having the confidence to say, hey, I like this, and I think that other people will too. There's a difference between me and him of intention and context and background and fame. I think that last part is where he and I overlap. I just want to listen and experiment and have the confidence to say, hey, I like this. Do you like it too? Should you use presets? I think it depends on why you make music and what you enjoy about making music. Me, I really like nerding out with synths and resampling and nonsense effects. I would and do that without the expectation that it will actually turn into a piece of music. I just like playing with sounds. But if you're someone that prefers to cast a sonic net through your preset libraries and see what you discover, I hope that this video has at least given you some ideas about how you can unlock the meanings of the sounds that you use and put them to good use in your music. If you find sifting through presets as at times draining, as I do, and you'd like to have a better understanding of sound design so that you can start to make more of your own sounds to use in your tracks, check out the link in the description and drop me your email address to find out more about how you can do exactly that. And if you're looking for more advice on how to find your own sound in your music, you should check out this video next to find out why it's as simple as copying your favorite artists.